welcome back to the Hennessey Podcast. We had a couple weeks off. Cole, our youngest son, got married over in Italy and had a good time over there, but we're back to business, back to hot and humid Texas, and I am so excited to have our friend and customer, Louis Flory, with us here today. Glad to have you with us, Louis.
Yes, sir. Pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be a customer, by the way.
Absolutely.
I'm super excited about what we've got going there. But I got to start off with a huge congratulations to Cole.
Yeah.
The trip over in Italy and the wedding. Congratulations on that. That's fantastic.
A lot of good memories.
Yeah, I bet. I absolutely love Italy. It's a very, very special place. Listen, at the end of the day, it's my family and I's favorite country to visit.
The food's ridiculous.
It's unbelievable.
I mean, after 2 weeks of it, I ate all the bread, I ate all the pasta, I drank all the wine and rosé. And we had, look, the nice thing is you generally walk from the restaurant afterwards.
Right.
And I ate nonstop, ate all that. If I was in Houston eating at Carrabba's and eating Amalfi every day, I'd gain 10 pounds minimum.
Easy.
There, I only gained a pound. It's a lot of times I lose weight, so I think the food is so fresh over there.
That's my exact same experience. We're walking everywhere we're going. There's no such thing as to-go boxes. So
right.
In fact, you want to insult them.
Exactly. Right. No, you eat it all. Right.
You're eating it all. You're eating it all. You're drinking all the wine. The table wine is fantastic.
Yes.
So you're gonna eat that. You're gonna drink that.
The average food over there is better than like the best restaurants over here generally.
There's no question.
Yeah.
There's no question. But it's our exact same experience every time I go. Had I eaten half of what I've eaten over there here,
right,
I would have gained 7, 8, 9 pounds.
Easy.
And usually
feel bad, feel bloated,
feel terrible, yeah,
stomach ache, and just over there. I think it's because it's so fresh. Like literally the vegetables and the tomatoes, like they're growing them in their garden or just down the road. It's not some big processed, big ginormous, corporate farm and process and a bunch of chemicals. No, it's like food of the Italians is like religion.
Well, listen, to your point, that's part of their afternoon. They go to the market every afternoon to plan out and get whatever they're making dinner with. And of course, it usually has something to do with tomatoes and pasta
and olive oil.
Bread and olive oil and
that's
garlic,
right.
the whole bit. But you're right. There's no preservatives. It's fresh every day. It's a major part of their culture. One of the funniest things, first time we were over in Italy, I read and understood that they have dinner much later than we typically do here in America.
Absolutely.
But my wife and I showed up at a restaurant for dinner at about 7 o'clock, and there was only staff there and looking at us like, what are you doing here? We're not open yet.
Montana and Maranello,
yes,
they don't even open until 7 o'clock.
Right.
That's
exactly.
when it opens. And there was nobody there.
No way.
I got there at 7 o'clock. They're like, what are you doing here?
What are you doing?
Yeah, exactly.
That was the exact same thing with us. What are you doing
here?
here?
Summertime.
Yeah, exactly. What are you doing here? But but that's one of the great things I love about that is dinner's a big thing for them, not only every night, but also Sunday brunch is a big thing. But what we've noticed that I really love is dinner is really built around their time of connecting with friends and family. It's a big social thing. It usually goes from about 9 p.m. to midnight, something like that, even during the week. And you know what you don't see?
They're not on their phone.
No one's sitting at the table on their darn phones. Nobody. I love that. I absolutely love that.
Great.
I'm like, we probably should reincorporate some of that back over here, man, for sure.
I love it.
And cut out the preservatives. We might do a little bit better.
Well, man, so you've got the Gentleman's Garage. So you've started kind of your own social media and video platform. You've got an amazing collection of cars. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how we connected and how you became a client. But if you wouldn't mind for the listeners, and again, this is going to be maybe like the first podcast we're going to talk about cars, but we're going to kind of get into entrepreneurship. I'm an entrepreneur. You're an entrepreneur. Before we get into the entrepreneur part, like go back to like when you were younger, what was your first car experience that like kind of made you think that, man, I really like or love cars, or what's that story?
So there's 2 cars. One inspired me as a little boy, but another one changed my life. And I'm not overstating that when I say that. Okay. So, I was born in 78. So my dad had a 78 Trans Am.
Love it. Okay.
Oh my God. Right.
With the fire chicken on the hood.
Absolutely. Loaded out.
Smoking the Bandit, was it black with gold? Or?
So his was midnight blue.
Okay.
Right. With it had all the decals
on it.
Yeah.
That's a pretty color.
It was a beautiful color. Beautiful color. And of course he wanted the black one. Right. But it was super cool that he could just have that one, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so he had that car, and that car was probably the first thing that, first time I'd ever really been around anything like that, right?
Okay.
It was mostly trucks and around a farm and stuff like that, and to see this sports car, if you will. I mean, sports car had 186 horsepower or something terrible.
Sure.
I mean, they were not great.
Yeah.
But it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen at that point. And that's where I first really fell in love with cars, right? And so that was a big thing. And I actually have a pro touring build of a.
I think I saw that in Shmi's video.
Yes. And that's a pro tour. It's Art Morrison chassis, built up LS3 motor. That thing cooks. It's definitely the only thing original about that thing is the body. That's
Love
about it. Yeah.
So it looks original, but you have all the modern stuff.
All the stuff. Willwood brakes, built on a C6 Corvette suspension. It's super cool. That is definitely. Hey, this car was the first big car in my life,
right?
And I now have.
So you have memories of riding with your dad and 100%. Doing cool stuff.
Yeah.
Dad doing a burnout.
Oh yeah, 100%. Okay. Yeah, it's the first time I'd ever done a burnout or experienced a burnout was my dad doing a burnout in that Trans Am. Absolutely. He usually did it in front of my grandmother's house just to really piss her off.
I love it.
Oh, it was great. It was kind of a family tradition of teasing my grandma. At the end of the day, we all knew it was a good fun, and she'd act like she'd get really pissed about it, but I think she really enjoyed the attention as well.
Grew up in the Houston area?
Yes, born and raised Houston. Yeah.
Awesome.
And but the car that really, when I say changed my life, it really did change my life, is I ended up skipping forward a little bit, I ended up living with my grandparents. My grandparents had a farm here in Houston, so we were horse and cow merchants, right? So other than that exposure when I was really young to the Trans Am, and then I ended up living with my grandparents, it was all farm equipment and, tractors and whatnot.
Sure.
And they still have the Pasadena Rodeo.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm 8 years old.
Okay.
And my grandpa took me down to the Pasadena Rodeo because we had some horses that we were running in that rodeo down there. Okay. So they had the little fair. And at the fair, there's silly, like you'll throw the ball and knock the pins down or whatever, win a prize. So they had the darts where you throw darts, you pop a balloon, you win a prize. So I'm doing that, right? With of the $5 it gave me, it was like $1 a piece or whatever it was, per game.
Sure.
And I pop a couple of balloons and I'm able to win a poster. And there's this poster of this car. It was the craziest thing I'd ever seen in my life.
Okay.
I had never seen anything like this before in my life. I didn't even know what it was. All I knew was that was on the row of prizes that I could get, and I wanted it.
How
right?
Cool. Okay.
And so I get this poster.
Right.
And I bring it home. I'm so excited to put it on my wall. I still don't know what the hell it is.
Okay.
Right? But it is the craziest car I've ever seen in my life. A couple of days later, I have a buddy of mine comes over after school, and he goes, "Oh, my God, that's the Lamborghini Countach."
I knew it was the Countach. I knew it was a Countach. Was it white or red?
It was red.
Okay.
Red tan.
Right. Okay.
It was red tan.
So back in the day, so this is like now mid 80s.
Yeah.
But like 10 years before, I'm 15 years older than you. Like it was either like a Countach or Farrah Fawcett.
That was it.
Farrah Fawcett with her side boob.
Oh yeah, 100%. And every little boy knows
this is all before the screensavers, right?
100%. Yeah. That was the best we had, right?
Wow, that is awesome.
Every little boy.
So you saw that image. You'd never seen that before. You didn't know what it was. You didn't know it was a Lamborghini. You did not know it was a Countach.
No.
And now all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, that's incredible.
So that poster obviously was on my wall, and it wasn't just about the car. It was what that car. You
guys can put the Countach on the screen if you want.
Oh yeah. There we go.
Let's not just jump around on the screen. Let's put like what we're talking about on, if you can. We don't have to run a bunch, but definitely put the Countach up there, and then we're going to talk about his F40 at some point.
I can tell you what. Believe it or not, I actually have a screenshot of the actual poster.
Let me see it.
Here, let me see. Pull this up real quick. Here is the actual poster that I had on my wall. That's it. That
is awesome.
Yeah.
Here it is, everybody. It almost looks like it's like a painting.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
It's not a photograph. So that's like old school, like a true poster.
Yep.
Like the old racing posters. It was no photograph.
That's
right. It was like a rendering.
It was a rendering.
Yeah,
right. It was a rendering.
That's awesome.
And so it almost looked cartoonish. Like I think when I got the poster, I didn't really realize it was a real car.
So you're 8 years old when you won the prize at the Pasadena Rodeo.
Right.
And your friend recognizes what it is, and you're like, Was that like a pivotal moment where like that inspired you? You're like, okay, well, rather than going out and hang out with the wrong crowd and doing drugs and being a degenerate, maybe I ought to pay attention to school or at least work or do something productive. So maybe someday that's my dream to own that car. Is that your dream?
And there you go. So I've got the car on the wall, and like I was saying, like, yes, obtaining the car was obviously the dream, but it embodied so much more to me mentally and emotionally. It represented another level of life that I didn't even know existed.
Okay.
Right? That there's people out there that could own something like this, right?
That are dreaming big.
Huge,
big
right?
dreamers.
Yeah, absolutely. You know.
And did you think that, okay, if somebody out there owns that, maybe if I dream that big and work that hard and catch the right break and make the right choices, maybe there's a chance I could have that car not only in my garage, but I'm going to be driving it.
Well, that was the idea, and so that's what it ended up embodying.
We'll get to that one.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
But that's what that car ended up embodying me. So that poster, I want you to know,
right,
was on my wall until I went off to college.
Okay.
And the inspiration from that was more about the life that I wanted to try to achieve, the man that I wanted to try to become. It opened up this realm that I didn't. Let's say it another way. I didn't even know there were dreams that big. Right up to that point,
right,
the dream was to get back to a Smoking and Bandit Trans Am.
There you go.
You're right. And
so
I thought that was
you elevated the dream.
Right. Maybe beyond that might have been a Corvette.
Yeah,
right.
Sure,
you know,
sure.
you're born and raised Texas boy. You think,
right,
you know, that's the best you know. And to see something like that on a whole nother level. And here's what I really try to encourage when I talk to younger people and they're looking for guidance or mentoring or some direction. You know, and well, I want to mentor here, I want to mentor there. And I said, listen, you need to decide there's a vision of who you are striving to be.
Right.
And you got to decide who that person is. And then and that's just the beginning though. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
What I have found, and I still do this to this day at 45 years old, is the more I learn and grow, and the more I'm striving to achieve that vision that I have of myself, that I'm trying to become as a husband, as a father, as a businessman, as an influence on others around me.
Sure.
Right. The closer I get to that vision continues to evolve.
Right.
I'll never reach that person, but that's what I'm always striving to be. Right. And that began with that poster of that car. It was the first vision of something that far off, a dream, like I said, that's bigger than I ever even thought to dream before, and that became that motivation for me to strive for everything. But
now, was there somebody pivotal, whether your dad, a family member, a teacher, a coach, like in those, you know, in that say in that 12 to 18 range, that like influence you, like, hey, dude, if you want a car like that, this you might want to think about this, or this might be your path. Just
not
curious.
Directly,
okay,
right? I'd love to say that there was.
Yeah, that's okay.
But there really,
and I didn't have that. I didn't really have that person either, honestly.
Yeah, I really.
But
didn't.
I knew I wanted to be into fast cars, and I knew I
absolutely
like that. I had a connection with that made me feel good.
Yeah,
gave me status with girls and made me cool when I would have otherwise maybe been a little bit of a dork.
I definitely would have.
You know.
I was definitely slightly cooler than what I deserved to be with a few cars that came along the way. Yeah, the '94 Z28 Camaro I got at 17, which I still have, by the way. It's in my collection, fully restored.
Now, do you remember the first time you actually saw a Countach in person, in live in the flesh?
Well, you know what? This is going to blow your mind. So the first time I actually saw a Countach in person was only just a few years ago.
Really?
Yeah, it was only a few years ago.
They're rare. You're not just going to see one in traffic.
Right, and it was a fluke deal.
Okay.
So another story we should tell sometime, but my very first exotic car I ever bought, I was 28 years old, and I bought a 2005 Lamborghini Murcielago Roadster, and it was used. I bought it with like 2,100 miles on it, whatever, because I could just barely afford the used one at that age. I couldn't quite afford the new one yet.
Sure.
But anyway, bought the car. I had sold the car, traded it in whenever the Aventador came in, so 12, 13 years ago.
Right.
We decided to track that car down. I bought it back, the exact one, and we were restoring it because I wanted to recreate this picture that I had of my kids sitting in it when they were 4 and 6 years old.
Oh, I love it.
And we recreated it with them now at 17 and 19. So Anyway, so the car was at an interior shop actually here in town. You're probably familiar with them. And they did great work, by the way. So I was stopping by to check on see how the car was doing. And there was a Countach sitting there.
Nice.
First time I'd ever seen one in person. So this was...
So that all of a sudden takes you back when you're 8 years old and you got your poster.
Immediately.
Okay.
And a few months later, I bought my Countach.
Dude, good for you. So go back a little bit as far as... So you get the inspiration, you get the connection for the car. You're like... and then you go to college... And what'd you study, and what'd you end up doing when you got out of college?
Yeah, so I was studying international business. I minored in Spanish.
Right.
And I did not finish.
Okay, me too.
Okay,
all right.
Okay,
we got that going for us, right?
Yeah. Well, I joke around and say all the greats they didn't finish college.
Okay, yeah.
Except when I talk to my kids. So.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Well, here's what I tell them. Though, that's what. Now they know that they're going to finish college, but my son sometimes questions it, and he says, "Well, Dad, you didn't finish." I said, "Well, that's more reason that you have to do it." I'll bet. I said, "Well, son, that's more reason you have to do it." And he goes, "Well, what do you mean, Dad?" That's because lightning doesn't strike in the same place twice.
That's right.
So, I needed 21 more hours to graduate. So I was, what a semester, and maybe a semester and a couple of summer courses, whatever, to finish. And I'd gotten in trouble at school again. I went to SFA.
Me
school.
too.
Did you go to SFA?
No, I went to community college for a year. Then I went to University of Missouri for a year.
Okay.
Then I decided I want to take a gap year. That's when I moved to Houston. I think I'm on my 41st gap year, and I went to San Jack College, so over in LaPorte, and took some aviation classes.
Well, you kept trying then.
I kept trying, but I never threw the towel in. But I was like, I can make money, and I don't need college.
Yep.
I guess I went through that period of time, and maybe some of the younger listeners listening to this think that, when you're 22 and your friends from high school are graduating and then they're getting jobs, you kind of feel a little bit behind the eight ball, and it kind of messes with your mind a little bit.
Sure does.
But I never really lacked for confidence. I always kind of figured I'd figure it out. But it did kind of it kind of pissed me off a little bit, where I'm like, these guys are out there getting jobs. I don't never really wanted a job. I always want being an entrepreneur. How did you go from almost done with college? Were you working, or what was your first business?
So what's really cool, one of the coolest conversations I've ever had in my life, was when the dean was suspended me again from college. And the dean was a great guy. He was a really cool guy. Pulls me in, says, "Louis, we got to suspend you again." Of course, I knew why I was there. Right? So it was not breaking news. I was being suspended again.
Sure.
And he was a really cool guy. And he says, "Listen, Louis," he said, you can serve your suspension. And by the way, fun fact, if you get suspended from let's call it, Stephen F. Austin, which is a state university, you're suspended from all state universities in the state of Texas.
Oh, really? You can't just
you can go nowhere other than maybe like a private school if they'll take your ass.
Right. Yeah. Sure.
And who wants me at that point? But he told me, he says, "Listen, do yourself a favor. Don't come back to college." He said, he told me that. He said, you do not, he said, how do you say, he said, you do not need college. What you are looking for, you're not going to find in education.
That's powerful advice.
He said, you're going to be an entrepreneur. He says, I have no idea what kind of business you're going to be in.
Right.
And he goes, but I think you already know that. Mm-hmm. And just like you said, I never had a dream of a job. Right, ever. It was always, I was going to be in business for myself. Now, what that business was going to be, probably since I was 10, 12 years old, those ideas changed.
Right.
But it was always the idea of owning my own business. And you mentioned a word there just briefly, and I really drive this home to everybody I talk to, and especially my own kids. You said you always had that confidence. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
And there might have been, and I'm sure there was plenty of times, especially when you and I were younger, hell, maybe even still today, when they look at us going, I don't see any reason why you should have that much confidence in yourself.
Yeah, right.
But we did.
When we're younger, that cockiness probably caused us some headaches and a few fights and whatever else. That's okay.
It cuts both ways, but we grow up. But
yeah, we do eventually.
Right, but it does cut both ways. Yeah. In fact, I don't know of any really good trait, especially that allows you to be an entrepreneur, that doesn't cut both ways sometimes.
That's right.
I mean, we have extreme personalities.
Right.
We're strong-headed, strong-minded, strong-willed.
We don't give up.
We never give
gritty.
up. Yeah, we will grind and grind and grind and grind. I think there's a part of us that actually loves the grind.
Absolutely.
Just grind away.
So you're getting some sage advice from the dean. Where'd you go from there?
So I come home. So I walk out of the dean's office, just really inspired. Like, I'm on the right path.
Yeah.
As crazy as I just got suspended from school.
Right. You're
but
full
I'm on
of
the
piss
right
and vinegar and energy, but you just need to
this.
apply it to something that it aligns with maybe your passion and your skill set. You obviously have got great communication and great EQ skills. Probably you were born with that, right?
I believe so. Sure. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that you just, you can't
you
really
can coach it up, but there's nature versus nurture, but,
Yeah, for sure. Nature versus nurture.
So I'm guessing you got into sales of some form.
Exactly. So I come home. And it was funny. Like I left this really inspirational conversation. I call my dad. Somehow or another, the conversation I had just heard didn't translate quite well to him about me being suspended.
Oh yeah, sure, right.
So
he's the one footing the bill for the tuition. It's like, okay.
Yeah, he's not happy.
Yeah.
And in fact, if you see my dad today, he'll go, well, I only know two things about the boy. He doesn't need money from me, and he didn't finish college.
There you go.
He still brings it up. So I literally fell into the industry I'm in today. And when I say that, I knew I needed to get a job. I needed to figure out what the hell I was going to do. And I was, believe it or not, I was going for my second interview to be a bartender at TGI Fridays.
There you go.
I'm not kidding.
I worked at a TGI Fridays at one point in time.
You're kidding me.
No, I take that back. I worked at Bennigan's. Excuse me.
Well, they were one and the same, right?
Yeah,
I mean, and we all hung out together. You worked at Bennigan's, you hung out. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure.
That is crazy.
Isn't that funny? I did it for a period of time, but that's a different story. But
I did it for 14 months. So I was going for my second interview. I'm getting a haircut. Had a childhood buddy of mine was with me, and there was a staffing agency next door, and he kept telling me, man, you need to go in there and they get you a job. I said, listen, I don't have time for a temp job. I need a real job.
Right.
So he kept hounding me. Finally, I decided to go in there. Yeah. I had time to kill before my big interview with the GM at TGI Fridays.
Sure.
And so they ended up giving me a job doing sales. I didn't even know this industry existed until I walked in. Right. I didn't know how this worked. I never heard of this.
Sure.
And but I knew I could sell.
Okay.
That I knew. That was the one skill I knew I had. Mm-hmm. Right. And yeah, so I started doing sales. So I started that following Monday. I started from 8:30 to 5 doing temporary staffing, and then right across the street, 5:30 to close, I'd go to TGI Fridays and bartend. Because I needed the cash.
You get cash money.
Cash
tips.
That's
right.
I needed the cash money. Exactly. 2 weeks till that next paycheck. I don't have that kind of cash flow.
That's exactly right. Yeah. You want to go to Whataburger, you need some cash.
Yeah. I needed the money.
Put some gas in the car.
Yep, that was it. That's exactly where those two, where that money went. Whataburger and money to get back to work. That's right. Absolutely. Yeah. And so, but that's where everything changed in my life. So again, I had a job, which was never my goal. Right. I had two jobs, quite honestly.
Right.
But about 3 months into working for that business, I recognized that there was a real opportunity in the marketplace in a space that they didn't seem to understand.
Okay.
Right. So I remember I saw this opportunity to service these companies, which is, I call it the amoeba version of what our business model is today.
Okay.
But it started there, at 20 years old. So I'm 20 years old at the time.
Sure.
I wasn't even 21 yet. And we're doing this temporary staffing thing, and it's got its pros and cons in the industry, don't get me wrong. But I saw this space where there's these companies that would tremendously benefit from outsourcing their entire labor force.
Right.
And I very quickly understood the money behind it, the economics behind it, that, listen, we're a staffing agency. We staff thousands of employees, right? And you've got these companies that maybe have, 100 employees, 200 employees.
Right.
By scale, our cost per capita is cheaper than theirs, right?
Right.
And I'm like, why are we selling these temporary assignments where people are getting on and off these, and we're chasing temporary short-term revenue,
right?
When if these companies outsource their labor force, not only can we save them a ton of money and eliminate a lot of liability from them, right? But we now have recurring revenue for infinite.
Yeah,
everybody wins.
Right.
And so I go to my branch manager at the time and told her this idea that I had. I'll never forget her response. She goes, "Listen, man, we've been doing this since 1974. Go back and do it the way we told you to do it." Like,
yeah. Okay.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, sure. And the rest is history.
The rest is history.
Good
so
for you.
I started selling these deals, and it was much smaller than what we do today. But I'd go somewhere and they'd have 50 employees in their distribution center or their warehouse or whatever it was, and I would present the business model to them. The math made sense. It's straightforward. It's dollar for dollar.
So you can offer the healthcare benefits, HR,
the whole bit.
Basically, it just becomes every 2 weeks. They transfer this chunk of money. You distribute all the direct pay or however you pay.
Yeah,
them.
and that was kind of like I said, the amoeba version. What we do
Right.
today is much more involved.
Right.
We do everything.
And what's the big company? They're up there around Kingwood that does that, or
Yeah.
they sponsored a golf tournament.
So you're thinking about Insperity.
Insperity.
So
yeah.
we don't really directly compete with Insperity.
Okay.
What I was doing then was probably closer to what Insperity does.
Okay.
Our business model's evolved
Okay.
a lot since then.
Uh-huh.
But listen, at the end of the day, what was really cool is I'm 21, 22 years old during this period of time as I'm building this up.
Right.
And I had a commission structure based off of getting, a few employees out on these short-term assignments.
Right.
And now I'm signing them up 60, 80, 100 at a time.
Right.
And it's this consistent recurring revenue.
Nice.
So by the time I'm, 21, 22 years old, I'd really turned the commission structure on its head.
So this is while you're still working for the company.
Yeah.
They're like, do it our way.
Yeah.
So you're basically pushing the boundaries.
I went
like,
rogue. I
they
totally
had
went
they had no idea that they're going to have to pay you so much money because you're bringing so many positive results for them.
Exactly. So by a pretty young age, I was making a lot of money for a young man that age, right?
But then you transition from working for them, and you're like, hey, I still want to do my own deal. So you got a little bit of a nest egg. You're probably early married and maybe young kids, but you're like, hey, look, I still have always wanted to do my own deal. I want to have my own Countach or whatever it might be.
And you're not going to get there like that.
Right,
yeah, for
right.
sure. There's a difference between that kind of money and then.
Then you start doing your own deal. That starts scaling up. And then what was your first car that you bought for yourself with your entrepreneur?
The first big boy car.
Yeah.
First big boy car was the 2005.
Okay, it was the Mercy.
Yep.
Okay,
that was the first big boy car. Yeah.
And then at that point, did you think, man, I'm doing pretty well. I mean, I'd like to kind of keep going.
Oh God. I mean, that's what's really, and I know you are going to identify with this 100%. It was always about the achievement and achieving what I felt was my full potential. It was never a dollar amount tied to it.
Yeah, of course.
I've never chased the dollar.
Yeah, no, I think to me, to some degree, when I look at the balance sheet, when I look at the income statement, bank statement, whatever, it's a bit of a scorecard.
That's exactly what it is.
And I'm like, I've had my ups and downs as an entrepreneur. It's been a lot more up in the last 10 years than the previous 20-something years. But I always felt like for my wife, primarily, maybe for my kids a little bit, like I want to have a trophy. I want to show you like all that hard work and that risk and the ups and downs and the kicks and the balls and the self-inflicted wounds along the way and the learning process. I'm like that, not giving up. If you give up, failure's final if you give up.
That's the only time
failure's
you fail.
not final if you keep going.
Actually, there's 2 points of failure that I would argue.
Okay.
Never trying.
Right. That's right.
And when you give up.
That's right.
Everything else in between, unless you're foolish, is your opportunity to get better and learn and grow.
Every failure is an opportunity for learning.
Every single one of them. And you hit the nail on the head there. When you're an entrepreneur, especially in, I'm going to say that first, depending on your business, 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Mine was probably closer to that first 5 or 7 years where on a good day, the world kicked you in the nuts only 2 or 3 times.
Sure.
That's a good day.
Absolutely.
And you come home, you're bruised, you're battered, you're beat up, but there's never now there's exhaustion.
Sure.
There's, you definitely go through some tough
You're
emotional
learning,
times.
you're building your network, you're building your reputation in the industry.
But you're never going to quit.
That's right.
You're just never going to quit. I tell my kids all the time, and I tell people this all the time. In fact, I want to put this on a T-shirt.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe we'll do like Gentleman's Garage.
Yeah.
And on the back, everybody has those like inspirational quotes, right?
Yeah.
Mine are a little bit more colorful than what you might see on posters, right?
Good.
but you
as long as
I think
truth.
they hit a little heavier.
Yeah.
I tell my kids all the time. So listen, it's not that I was always the smartest person in the room. I was just the son of a bitch that refused to quit.
There you go.
That's
Grit,
the bottom
baby.
line.
Grit.
So I think we'll put Gentleman's Garage. And we'll put a perseverance, and I'll put definition of the SOB that refuses to quit.
In the day and time of again, the young people are listening to this, and the young people are looking to you or me or others out there. You get on Instagram, you scroll. There's all these guys that have all got the get rich quick program.
Yeah.
My experience is, it was probably 7 to 10 years before I thought that I had something that would continue going. Now, I never wanted to give up. But for the first 5 years in the car modification business, I thought, well, maybe it's a fad. Maybe people are going to be like, oh, I don't want to modify cars anymore. I want to, go paint paintings or something. I don't know. Thankfully, that has continued, and I think that will continue for, indefinitely. People, I think, are bonded with automobiles and internal combustion.
For sure.
But it really probably took the first 7 to 10 years, and maybe even the first 15 years. So like, if you're out there and you're thinking about becoming an entrepreneur and you're just going to watch the get rich quick guy, Tom Vu, why you want to get rich slow? You need to get rich quick, right? If you want to be like, but honestly, as an entrepreneur, if you're not prepared to put in that 5 to 10, maybe 15 years, it just ain't going to work. It's going to take that. It's going to, whether your model is a service business, recurring revenue, like our business is modifying cars, designing and building cars is very capital intensive. Then we also have our tuner school, which that's more of a service business. So every business has a different capital requirement, different level of risk, different timing. But, one way or the other, as long as you don't give up, you keep swinging the axe, sooner or later the tree's going to fall.
That is true, and you continue to learn. Listen, there's if you're going to make mistakes. You and I still make mistakes to this day.
Sure.
Okay, but
because we're willing to take a risk.
You're damn right. You're damn right. The only time you don't make mistakes is when you do nothing.
Play it safe.
Right. That's the only time you don't make mistakes.
If you were still at the staffing company, you
here we are.
I
wouldn't be sitting here with you.
No, well, you wouldn't have the collection that you have. You've had some tremendous success. You've grown your business to where you started with the Mercy, and then you started adding cars.
Right.
And Shmi's got a couple great videos of your collection. If anybody wants to watch and learn more about Louis and Gentleman's Garage, watch Shmi's videos, because it's a good 40 minutes where you really go in depth on each car. And I love the family connection. And we have got a big. We've got maybe 15, 18 cars, but every car in our family collection kind of has a tie back to a family member, the kids, something cool that we did with the car. But there's this particular car. You told me a little bit of the story when you came in to spec your F5 a while back.
Yeah.
Tell me the story of what. Okay, so you're in Houston. A broker had.
Yep.
You were in a garage somewhere and you noticed an F40, and so you take it from there.
Okay, so we were actually in the market for, my wife and I, it's 2017. We're actually in the market for a LaFerrari at the time.
Okay.
I just gotten to the point where I could put that much money into one vehicle. That's a lot of money in one vehicle. I don't care who you are. So anyway.
But it's a total dream. It's like, at that point in time, that's the pinnacle vehicle that you're thinking about owning.
It was one of.
One of, okay.
But truth be told, after the Countach, the F40 was always the pinnacle.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
That for me was Ferrari at its greatest.
Yes.
Right? Now,
the last car that was built and designed while Enzo was alive.
That's
he passed away in 88, I believe.
Exactly.
He came out in 87. So,
that's right. Exactly.
For the F40 commemorates the 40th anniversary of Ferrari's company.
Exactly, and is only existing today. It only ever came into existence because of the evolution from the 288 GTO.
Correct. Yes.
So the F40 is a very significant car.
Yes.
Very significant car.
Yes.
So we're there. We're looking at a LaFerrari.
Yep.
And it's a warehouse. There's a bunch of cars there. And I look over and I see the silhouette from the side of that very distinctive rear wing.
You know what that rear wing is all about.
Immediately.
Squared off.
Oh, yeah. I knew exactly what it was. So all of a sudden, I didn't give two craps about the LaFerrari sitting here.
Yeah.
It was, is that an F40?
Yep.
Right?
Okay.
And I beelined right over to it before the guy even answered.
Right.
And I beelined over to it. In fact, I left him and my wife standing by the LaFerrari.
Yeah.
I'm over at this F40. So, yeah, buying an F40 became, and I'm not overstating this, a
obsession.
6-year saga.
Oh yeah.
Of
look, I've heard some great car stories. I've got some great cars. If y'all are tuning in, do not turn off the channel, because this is a freaking crazy story.
This is a crazy story. It's a story I wish I didn't have to tell. Let's put it that way.
All right, so you spot it under the cover.
All right, so there it is.
And you're talking to the broker.
Yep.
And what's the story on the car?
So they came to own this car through interesting circumstances, and I'll leave it at that. All right? At best.
Okay.
But I'd love to go into detail.
But could we say the car had some connection back to Enzo?
Yes, it did.
In an indirect way.
Yes, it did.
Okay.
The car was connected 1 degree of separation, if you will, back to Enzo. The story, the background of this car was extremely significant. Not only was it an F40,
yeah,
but it was who owned it was
Was somebody
Very close.
Somebody who was close to Enzo.
Very close to Enzo.
Okay.
And it was fully documented. This wasn't one of those folklore stories. It was no question who owned this car.
And not to give up, because I know kind of some of the inside baseball on this, but just to kind of keep it to where nobody out there is unhappy with the full story being told. But basically, so this is a car that belonged to somebody that was close to Enzo, and then there was a period of time where the car was basically out of circulation.
That's right.
And you just happened to time yourself.
It was
at some later date, 20 years later, where you're like, you spot it in this warehouse, you see this silhouette, and then you ask the broker, what, can I buy this car?
That's right. And so that's exactly
Let's just pick up from there.
Yep, exactly. And so we again, the car wasn't even in conversation that day. Once I saw it, I couldn't let it go. And then of course found out the background story. So yeah, we meet on this car. We had a couple of meetings on the car because it actually was not sitting there to be sold. So all that had to be sorted out. What is the deal? What does it look like?
Right.
This, that, and the other. So we had worked the whole deal out on the car. The car was going to be restored. Okay. And I was buying the car. We bought it for a number that at the time, this was 2017. Now, as you and I know, these cars have moved drastically in the last.
You told me the number is half of what it is today.
That's correct.
Okay.
It's half.
Right.
Half. Yeah, exactly. That's spot on. So, and I'd put about a third down cash.
Okay.
The rest was going to be due when the car was done being refurbished. And
so the broker that had the car wasn't intending on selling it, but now is in a position after basically having possession of it for almost 20 years, is now like, okay, yes, I'll make this deal with you. You sit down, you have multiple meetings, you put together a contract, you send them a multiple six-figure chunk of change, and the representation to you is, we're gonna, for this amount of money, which is again half of what they're worth now, they're going to do a complete restoration for you. That's going to take several months to do. And so you give them a substantial deposit, but basically at this point you shake hands, you sign a contract, you pay money, and you're like, that's my car.
And absolutely. And we're getting, my wife and I are getting,
and here's where it gets crazy.
Yeah. We're getting updates about every week from some of the techs that we're working on the car. You know, we're working on this, working on that, all the normal stuff that needs to be refurbished, the turbos, the bladders, all the normal hoses, belts, all the normal stuff, but nothing major with the car. It's just
and at
age.
this point in time, it's the car's still the factory red, like all of them.
Yes. Still factory red, absolutely. And so I think it had 4,000 kilometers on it, which is whatever in miles.
2,400 miles, 2,500 miles. Yeah,
these guys quick.
Yeah.
So yeah, and all of a sudden we stopped getting updates. And I'm like, well, that's weird. And you're busy doing other things, this and the other. And then a couple of weeks go by, 2 or 3 weeks go by, and I'm like, we haven't heard anything. So I thought I'd give a call. So I give a call to the person that runs this shop that was doing the restoration work. And he says, we need to find you another car. There's some things we found with this car. We don't want to make it public, but we would rather find you another car. We're going to fix this car. We just don't want to be known public what it needs. And immediately I'm going, I've done enough business deals to know, okay.
They're bullshitting you.
Totally. But, like, I can't
So are you feeling at this point like they're bullshitting me? They're giving me this cock and bull story because they want to sell it to somebody else for more money?
I didn't really, at the time, I really didn't jump to that. To be brutally honest, I didn't jump to that. I'll say it this way, for the first 4 or 5 days, I actually bought the story. Okay. And then as it kind of soaked in a little bit more, wait a minute. These cars are pretty simple. At the end of the day, an F40 mechanically is a relatively simple car. The guys that are working
on it, they know how to restore an F40.
Absolutely. Okay. I mean, and nothing can't be gotten from this can be fixed, whatever it is.
Right.
So it began to not really make much sense, and then it hit me. I'm like, son of a gun! I bet this is what happened. That someone came along with more money, offered more money on the car.
Now, did they just immediately refund your money and say, hey, look, we'll have to find you another car?
We'll find you another car. Yep. Yeah, they did.
Did they ever find you another car?
No.
Of course.
No, they did not. No, they did not.
And then what's then the next thing you hear about this car? What where does it go from there?
So we're at an event. My wife and I were at an event, and we were there with some of the people from this particular shop and this broker, and everybody's having a little bit of wine. Yeah. And I think that the lips got a little loose.
The goblet of truth.
Fuzzy. Oh, yes. The goblet of truth spoke that night. And the brokers told my wife and I straight, oh, yeah. We sold that car to this guy in Europe recently. And we both just locked eyes with him like, are you kidding me?
Oh my gosh.
And then immediately you could see the slight panic in his eyes. Then he realized
he forgot that he screwed you over, and
I forgot.
Yeah.
What had happened here. And, listen, at that point, what can you really do?
I get it.
What are you really going to do? And I found...
So now you find out the cars in Europe, it basically,
Car's
you
gone.
had it, and they gave you this cock and bull story.
Yeah.
Now it's gone. It's in Europe. Somebody else has it.
Car's gone.
And at that point, did you try to follow up with that guy, or what was the story? How did you reconnect with the car? At some point, the guy in Europe did he paint it blue?
No. So that's two separate cars. These are two separate cars. Yeah, these are completely
this is a different
cars.
car.
Completely different cars. But listen, that's not the one and only F40 that I got jerked out of.
Oh, really?
Oh, no. When I said it became a saga, that was just
I didn't even
chapter
know that.
1, John.
Okay.
Buying an F40, there were, and I'll tell you the story, but there were times where I began to believe, am I not meant to own an F40? Is there a higher power telling me, listen, you need to leave this car alone? I don't know. So that car was gone, and it's kind of like these things in business where and I've been screwed over. If you've been in business long enough, you've been screwed over. That's the way it goes.
Yeah.
And I have just found it's best to just pick up
on.
and move on.
Yeah, I agree.
Rather than just trying to beat a dead horse.
Yeah,
and it just, now you get this negative thing in
It's
your life.
negative energy.
It is.
It's just
move
negative
on.
energy.
And just get it out of your life, move on.
Right.
Now you know, right? And you move on.
Sure.
And there are still really great people out there to do business with, and let's go focus on them.
Good.
So anyway, we move on. Then a few years later, just the F40 itch came back.
Okay.
And it took me a while to get over that first one. I'll be honest with you, because we
course.
were, in my mind, this was our car.
Well, and it's a little bit, like your wife says, yes, that's a big investment, but I'll support it. And then some weird stuff goes down, and then now we're like bad to our wives, right?
Yeah.
No dude wants to be in that position, right?
And we got to own it, and we know what she's thinking, and we can't really defend it because, damn it, here we are.
So you just move on, but enough time had gone by where you're like, man, I'm still really passionate about the F40. So you found another one that you liked.
So we found another one,
okay.
And at this point, this was maybe 2021, 2022. So prices had gone through the roof, just through the roof, and it was to a point where I'm like, do I jump on this because they're going to continue to soar? Do I chill out and this is a bubble? It's going to come down because of all the COVID money that was pumped in the economy, blah, 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 blah. So we were really debating that. I never lost my wife's support of buying an F40.
That's cool.
Which is super cool. No, she's awesome.
Yeah.
And so she was fully supportive. So we found another one, very reputable dealership.
Right.
I get in touch with them. We're having a conversation. Obviously, they look you up in Ferrari deal and they realize you're, what our status is Ferrari, so they know we're a real buyer.
Right.
So they're taking us seriously. They were good guys. They were asking the moon for the car at the time,
right,
and they knew it, right? But you don't get what you don't ask for, so I can respect that. I'm just not going to pay that.
Yeah.
So they're asking for a number. I said, hey, listen, here's where I really think real money is on this car.
Yep.
They had come down a good chunk.
Mm-hmm.
And we were still about $175,000 apart. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, sure.
And I thought, I'm gonna let them have a few days to think about it.
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
Because they knew it was real money. It wasn't, buying this guy. They knew it was a real money. So I thought I'd give it a little bit of time. So about 3 days go by, and I was chatting with Gabby, my wife, about it, and I said, we're still about 175 apart. I'm sitting there looking at her, she's looking at me, and she kind of gave me this look, and I'm like, let's just give them the money. Screw it. Let's get the car. Okay. It's been long enough. Right. Let's get the car.
Good for you.
So I called him up. The guy says, Louis, I really wanted you to have that car. We sold it yesterday afternoon.
Oh, my gosh. And now your wife bought into it. You're willing to pay the extra.
Again.
Yikes.
So that still did not lead me to my F40. So that was a shot in the gut. However, we did buy a very, very special car that afternoon. I'm like, damn it. We're buying a great car today. There was another car we'd had our eyes on, and that's the day we bought our 599 GTO.
Oh, nice.
Badass
and those
car.
have done really well, too.
Oh, incredibly well.
Yeah, sure.
Really, really. We did really well on that car. So, and I love that car. That is my favorite a limited edition V12 Ferrari that I've driven to this point, outside of, the hypercars, of course. So, about 3 months go by.
Yeah.
And you probably know John Tamarian at Curated.
I do know John.
Very good friend of mine.
Yeah.
Great guy.
Guys out of Miami.
Yep. Yes, out of Miami. Really, really great.
It seemed like Curated, they were one of the first, at least American companies I can think of, that really focus on the niche of like, what are the cool classic Italian cars from back in the 80s and 90s that are going to appreciate. And I think they really like on some of the Diablos, Murcielagos, like they were on those long before they became a big thing.
They sure did. And I always applaud John on that. I'm like, you had the vision. You knew that was coming. Yeah. I mean, listen, you and I remember 7-8 years ago what you could buy a Countach for then versus where they're at now, or the Diablos.
Manuals. Yeah, sure.
Oh my God, the manuals. You're kidding me. Yeah, for sure. So I'd already done a few cars through John, some really, really special cars through John. And John knew that an F40 was on my list.
Right.
He calls me up and says, hey, I found a side slider F40. So for those of you that don't know, there was only about 100 made with these side slider windows. It's just like the race car.
Like on the LM. Okay.
Exactly. And so he says, listen, I've got my hands on a side slider at a number that was not bad. It was a decent number.
Right.
And the car was in Japan.
Okay.
So we were going to send...
All the cars were left-hand drive. Did they make any right-hand drive F40s?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I'm almost positive they did not.
And they made it like around 1,400 cars over 4 years?
1,320.
Okay.
1,320.
From 87 to 92?
That's correct. Yeah, 87 to 92. And so, but this was only 100. So this was... You're going to pay a premium for that, but long term, it's going to be a bigger return. There's only 100 done like this out of 1,320. Right. So this was a really great car. It was a good deal, not a great deal, but long term, it was probably the better investment.
Okay.
And so we sent the car for PPI while I was in Japan.
Okay.
And the people doing the PPI offered the guy $250,000 more.
Oh my gosh.
Than what we had agreed.
So here we are on F40 number 3.
Number 3.
I did not know this.
Yes.
Okay, interesting.
So at this point...
So no bueno.
It was no bueno. And there's the Countach. So at this point, in fact, that's an anniversary. Mine's an anniversary.
Year.
Yeah. So at this point, I just decided I'm done with that 40. Like,
you're just worn out. You're just worn out emotionally.
Yeah, you're just done.
Right.
And at this point, I'd gotten the Countach. And I'm like, maybe the F4 just is that maybe we focus on an F50, something like that.
Right.
This is just too many deals gone bad here.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I'm in my Countach driving to Whispering Pines, which is about 2 hours, 15 minutes north of where I live.
Okay.
Pouring down rain.
Yeah.
In my Countach to go play golf.
Right. Nice. But you can fit golf clubs in the back of the Countach, right?
In the trunk. If you take the driver in 3-wood, I'll lay it in the passenger seat. Believe it or not, the trunk of the Countach
will hold the irons.
Will hold the bag and the irons.
I love it.
Isn't that amazing?
That's cool.
And a duffel bag for the weekend.
I love it.
Who knew?
Yeah.
Who knew in a Countach?
Yeah.
I've tested it. I've done it. It's true.
I love it.
So, in fact, I'll have to see if I can find a picture of my bags and whatnot in the back. So it's pouring down rain. I'm driving the Countach, which is just hilarious. I'm driving this car in a pouring down rain. It wasn't supposed. It was one of those 20% chance days. Then it rains all day.
Yeah.
It was one of those days.
Welcome to Houston.
Welcome to Houston. So John calls me, and he says, "Hey, I've got my hands on an F40." I said, "John, no, stop.
Right.
I'm not doing it. No. He said, no. I know this guy. I've done a lot of business with this guy. He's bought cars from me. I bought cars from him."
Is this Shmee's buddy in the UK?
So Shmee's buddy, Sam Moores.
Okay.
He's the one that bought the blue F40 I have today.
Okay.
He bought it from Liberty Walk.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Right. Liberty Walk had put a body kit on it. Thank God they never chopped up the actual original body. I call them clamshells.
Right. So you could revert it back to original. Okay.
And so when he bought the car from Liberty Walk, he sent it back to Italy. Zanassi, which paints all the limited edition stuff. They work with the Class K division.
Yeah.
So that's why my car, believe it or not, it's painted blue, but it is Ferrari Classic K certified because it was painted by Zanassi.
Okay.
That's what makes the car very, very special.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And then Sam had the car for a number of years. He sold it to another gentleman who they've asked me not to disclose his name.
Okay.
But John Tamarian had done a lot of business with this guy.
Okay.
He's a major car collector in the world. On the world stage, he's one of the biggest.
Okay, cool.
He had this car. This was one of several F40s that he had.
Nice.
So John caught him on the right day, and John's like, listen, and had it not been from somebody like John that I'd done a lot of business with, this deal would have not been comfortable. Yeah,
you just weren't going to put the emotion into it and the time.
And it was also, he can change his mind in an hour. We got to wire the money now.
Right.
I'm like, you know what F40s go for. You can imagine what one of this status, the only off-color Classic K certified F40 that I know of.
Right.
It's not red.
So this was last year. So this is 2023. So basically, from 17, when you thought you had your first one that got kind of like rug pulled out from underneath you, so to speak. So now 6 years later,
6 years and 4 cars later,
you're now paying 2x, close to that.
Yeah,
Not
exactly.
quite
That's
2x.
correct. Yeah,
Okay.
2x, 100%, 2 times.
But
X.
the passion,
listen, what is the car going to do? Go down?
right?
I mean, come on.
Right.
It's not going to go down, right? And then this opportunity to finally get one fully restored from the factory.
Right.
So it's fully sorted out. It's not going to be a pain in the butt to deal with.
It's in the U.S. You're not importing it from Japan or someplace.
Well, it was in the UK.
Oh, it was in the UK.
The car was in the UK. So here I go again, wiring money.
Yeah.
Car sight unseen, a guy I've never met. I mean, it was John obviously brokered the deal, so I trusted John.
Right.
But the car's not in the U.S. It was in the UK.
Interesting.
At the time.
Okay.
And I told John, I said, don't put the thing on a boat. As you probably know, fly it every Saturday.
Absolutely.
There's a cargo plane, bring it over. I'm like, pay the money, get the car here Saturday. Car lands in Atlanta, clears customs. They truck it down to Miami Sunday night. Monday morning, my wife and I are there at John's dealership in Miami, waiting for the doors to open to finally take delivery of our F40.
Wow.
4 cars, and 6 years later, that was how hard it was to finally make that car. So, I guess it goes back to never quit, right?
Never quit. And look, it sounds to me like that's a car that you'll never sell.
No, that car will never go anywhere.
Yeah,
for
because
sure.
we have like in our, our rotation of cars is usually between 15 and 20. There's probably right now 7 or 8 that will never sell.
Yeah.
And the others are kind of on the fringe. It's kind of like, do I like it or do I love it, or is it so significant to our family? So like you're like literally that Wayne Carini show, Chasing Cars. Like your channel could be Chasing F40s.
It could, after that story, I don't ever live it again. But so that car. When you look at our collection, right? I think we've got maybe 24, 25 cars right now in the
all
collection.
Cars that you drive.
I drive the hell out of everything.
Manuals,
everything.
Multi-million-dollar cars.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love it.
I mean, I've put almost 1,300 miles now on my LaFerrari, and we've only had it maybe 2 months. And you know how much my wife and I travel, so we're not even that much. The Countach that we bought, I bought 1989 Countach downdraft, so it's the downdraft carbureted version.
Yep.
Very rare, very valuable.
Okay.
The car had 3,200 miles on it when I bought it. I've put 1,700 on it since I've had it.
Wow.
So, 3,200 miles since 1989 until I bought that car a little over a year ago.
Okay.
Same thing with the F40. We just bought the blue F40 in October.
Uh-huh.
And I've got 2,000 miles that I put on it myself. I drive the hell out of them. Listen, life's too short. I'm going to enjoy them. That's why I bought them. There's a lot of passion behind it. I respect the guys that want to just have them.
That's okay.
Yeah,
I mean, our customers are the same way. I mean, some drive them, some collect them. Everybody's got their own program, but for somebody to like take a very expensive, rare car and look, there's some risk. There's always the risk that some idiots, runs into you. And I've had that happen to I've got an old Cadillac CTSV wagon manual. Yeah. And I was daily driving it for a couple of months, and somebody in holiday traffic just ran into me, didn't see me. So,
things happen, right? I have we had the SVJ Roadster out here, and I'd only owned that car 24 hours, and somebody, hit me in the rear end at a light. Yeah. Fortunately, we were able to buff it out, but things happen, But do know one thing, that when I take delivery of that Hennessey F5 Revolution Roadster.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to drive the hell out of it.
Absolutely. So we've got a video coming out of you speccing your car.
Yes.
And there's one special aspect of the car that we're not going to talk about, but that will make it very, very different and unique. And the company will share that special detail at some later date. But you've got the first one of those. So.
I think it's going to be legendary.
Yeah, it is going to be legendary.
I cannot wait to see the world's reaction to what you're doing.
It's going to be really, really cool. So basically taking something that's very special and elevating it. Again, our desire is, what can we do to be like an F40? What can we do to be like a McLaren F1, a Carrera GT? Again, these are all great, amazing brands. But I think, again, we're very different in that most of the people that operate in the space of supercars and hypercars, especially when you start talking about going back 30, 40 years, they're all European. How many American companies have done this and done it successfully? No,
I can't think of one.
There companies have tried and not it hasn't gone that great. But we take it very, very seriously, and we're super excited to have you. Literally as our friend and neighbor.
Exactly.
We get to hang out and spend time together. And
that's the cool part.
So we've got a cool video coming out on Louis's speccing the car, and we've got such a really cool design process and new configurator that this is a video that will come out probably after this podcast publishes, but we're excited to share that. But one last thing before we need to let you get back to the other side of town before traffic kicks in, we'll grab a quick lunch or something. Tell the listeners about, again, one thing I really, and I've only known you for a short period of time, but one thing I feel like I picked up on you very early on, you love sharing your passion, and you really feel this, I don't know if it's an obligation, but part of your passion is paying it forward. So
Absolutely.
like whether it's like sharing kind of your entrepreneurial story, or like, hey, I tried college, I was almost there, Dean gave me some good advice, I went and worked for a while, found a niche within a business that they didn't want to do, I went out and did it and been very successful with it. So there's the entrepreneurial paying it forward, and I know Anthony, who does the car culture locally, studied entrepreneurship. Now I believe he's doing video and media work for you, but like I'm guessing like maybe you're like mentoring him too. So
sure.
You were telling me earlier about a thing that you're getting ready to do at Coda, and it's kind of like that. It's an entrepreneurship, but it's also kind of like a charitable thing.
Yep.
Tell the listeners about that.
Yeah.
What you're doing with that.
Thanks for bringing that up, John. I'm actually super excited. I was honored to be invited to do it.
Okay.
So there's a young man. He's still in college. He started this foundation 3 years ago.
Okay.
And what they're doing is he raises money. He rents out Circuit of the Americas, Coda, for the day, which is not cheap. It's a lot of money.
Yeah,
it's
$80,000 a day.
Yeah.
All in.
And so he rents out the track for the day. And what he does is he gets guys like you and I, John, that own some of these supercars and hypercars, and most all of us are entrepreneurs, right? And he works with some local organizations. They select a group of underprivileged kids that have shown desire to be an entrepreneur of some sort, right? In some space. It doesn't. And you and I both know if you're an entrepreneur, it doesn't really matter what space you go into.
Right.
You're going to be
with the lemonade stand.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And so he gets these group of underprivileged kids. They come out to Coda. Guys like you and I are out there in our toys, if you will, our hypercars and supercars. We're taking them on hot laps.
Yeah.
And it's not only an opportunity to give them a thrill, but they get to chat with us one-on-one, ask us questions, and then there'll be a few of us that actually give speeches to this group of kids about our story, our path to becoming an entrepreneur, what we think we've learned it's made us successful, lessons we've learned along the way, share that influence and those stories with those kids, hopefully to motivate and inspire them. And then he gives them an entrepreneurial startup kit at the end of the day. So they get to spend this entire day around cars. And you and I just sat and talked about how the Countach was the first car that really inspired me to really reach well beyond what I ever knew was possible.
Right.
And hopefully these cars, because you really said it, and I couldn't agree more. Especially guys, we really do develop a bond and a passion with cars and combustion engines. Forgive me, but I don't think I'm ever going to develop a passion or a bond with a Tesla. I think they make a great.
It's an appliance.
I think they make exactly.
It gets you where you want to go.
It does what it's supposed to do.
But it's
very
different.
Well. But I'm not going to be passionate about it.
Right.
So hopefully they develop a passion around that. They get to see guys like you and I, that how we made those dreams become our reality. And they can see that it's possible. You know, one of my favorite things I love to share with people, is where you come from is not indicative of where you end up.
Absolutely.
You have a choice in that.
Absolutely.
It's a matter of what you decide to do with yourself, how bad do you want it, how hard you're willing to work, right?
Yep.
And that's what makes this country so great. It makes me be so proud to be from here. It's why you and our stories are possible. And I just have this, especially as I get older, this stronger and stronger desire that I really want to share, that I want to inspire others, and I want to see others make that their story possible, right? Because at the end of the day, you know, you and I are kind of gotten to a place in life where we're going to continue to do what we've done, but we've done it.
Yeah.
We've crested, the big challenge or whatever, right? And now for me, it's about legacy, and it's about, like I said, who am I as a father? Who am I as a businessman? Who am I as a friend? And it's when I say those things, what I'm talking about is, what did I mean to other people around me?
How do you transition from success to significance?
There you go.
A book called The Halftime.
There you go.
Halftime. Yeah.
And I think that's definitely the phase.
So on this deal at Coda, so what's the name of the organization?
It's Dream Ride Entrepreneurship.
Okay.
And it's going to be Monday, June 10th.
Okay. And we'll put a link. We'll put a link in the video. And
please do.
Not to be confused with there's a guy that does a really neat event up in Connecticut called Dream Ride. So similar name, but this is more focused towards entrepreneurship and young people and kind of giving them. And so they have a website. Again, we'll put the link on there.
I was trying to pull it up right now, but yeah.
But maybe that's something that, again, I'm guessing that they do that on some sort of a recurring basis
every year
here at CODA. But maybe at some point, there's some successful entrepreneur in Denver or Scottsdale or Jacksonville or wherever, Miami, that maybe would want to do something similar.
Idea.
And again, I think the hook is you see the poster of the Countach, you now have the screensaver of the F5 or other cool cars, LaFerrari. So that's kind of where it starts. We're like, man, that's really cool.
Yeah.
That guy did it. Maybe I could do it someday too.
Exactly.
But I think, again, and not everybody's cut to be an entrepreneur.
No.
And just, if you have a job or you have a career, become a professional or whatever you end up doing, there's nothing wrong with that.
No. Success is different paths.
It probably does just take a little bit of a crazy brain like we have to want to endure some of the pain and some of the risk that goes along with entrepreneurship. But it's what makes the world go round.
Well, you hit the nail on the head there too. I spend a lot of time discouraging people from being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So listen, and this is the best example I can give. There is, and I think you would agree with this, a massive difference between an entrepreneur and a CEO. A CEO would never take the risk you and I've done. Never.
They're a hired gun.
Yeah, they would never do that. Right.
That's right.
And when you and I are building our businesses to where they're now going to be, hopefully continue to do what they do, they'll be our legacy.
Right.
And they will eventually be ran by CEOs.
That's right.
And their job is, listen, we've done the Wild West risk taking. Your job is to keep it in the fairway.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Keep it evolving and growing.
Sure.
They're going to evolve it in ways that you and I, it's not our strengths, right? When you start looking at scaling things to multi-billion-dollar year industries and things.
Well, there's
like
the pioneers, and there's settlers.
There you go.
Right? That's
exactly.
That's okay.
We're the pioneers.
We're the ones stirring the pot.
That's right. That's right.
But we create a lot of jobs, and kind of find our own way to differentiate in the market and innovate different things.
That's
and
right.
But I love the fact that you're so open about your collection, your passion. Paying it forward. You and I met Pagani. There was a guy that we know locally. He's a big Pagani, big Ferrari collector, and he unveiled a special Pagani up in the Woodlands maybe a year and a half ago, whatever. And I think you were in a Carrera GT. Maybe we brought an F5 up there, a couple of F5s, and we just met in passing in the crowd. There's a huge crowd of people up there.
We literally were
and I'm like,
passing in a crowd.
I think I know most of the serious car people in Houston. I'm like, who's this guy? He's got a Carrera GT and he's got a this and a that. And then the next thing I know, I'm like, man, he bought an F40, then a LaFerrari. I'm like, he needs an F5.
He does need an F5, and sure enough.
But more importantly is the fact that you're just good people. And by the way, we'll end on this. So this is a special model of the F5. You'll feel how heavy the sucker is. Carved out of billet aluminum. That is for you, my friend.
What?
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
is for me?
Yes.
Oh, what?
Yeah, absolutely.
John,
So
I'm sitting here, I was fiddling with this.
Get a little Sharpie, write a little note on there for you. But we're so excited to have you as our friend and special client. And I think you do a really cool thing in that you're not just one of these guys that just wants to own the cars for flex. That you really share it. And I think all the seeds that you're planting along the way, and hopefully we're doing something similar where there's some younger person out there that's they're 8, 9, 10, 15, 20, 25, trying to figure out where they want to go and what they want to do. Hopefully we can have some positive influence on that.
It's food for the soul, my brother. This was beautiful. Thank you so much. I could not be more proud to be a part of what you guys are. Listen, there's no way somebody was going to build a hypercar in my great state of Texas and me not own the darn thing. There was just no way. So here we are.
We love you, brother. Thank you. All right. Thanks for podcasting with us. And if you got any questions or comments, feel free to email us at podcast@HennesseyPerformance.com. And we are out. We'll see you next time. Cheers. Thanks.